All right, folks, once again, we hurtle ourselves into the void for the sake of good motorcycling content. Welcome back once again. Today we're doing part 4 of the owner's review of the BMW R1300GS. Today's deep dive is going to have us looking at the mirrors, the radar functions, and the lights on this bike. That might sound like a lot to bite off in what's supposed to be a dedicated deep dive, but the mirrors and the radar functions actually do dovetail pretty nicely. So, without further ado, let's throw the cruise control on. Okay, speed limit here is 100, and we are currently doing 100 with the cruise control locked at 100. We're coming up on a car in front of us, so we're going to get a demonstration of the radar right off the bat. Also coming into a slower speed limit, so that'll be helpful. All right, already we're slowing down. This is a pretty proven technology. There isn't that much really to talk about when it comes to active cruise control. A ton of cars have it. Since the Multistrada came out with it, a lot of motorcycles now have it. It was a killer feature when the Multistrada came out with it. That changed the game. I don't think it was the first motorcycle to have it, but it was the first motorcycle that everybody wanted that had it. And all of a sudden, people were like, oh yeah, that works well on motorcycles, and we want it too. So BMW set their engineers loose, and now they have it too. How does it work? Well, I don't know if you noticed before, but I have the cruise control locked in at 100. The car in front of me is doing 56 or somewhere thereabouts, and I had to downshift, and I could do it again, to be honest. So there you go. Doesn't affect the cruise control at all. That was a no clutch shift. I believe you can do it with the clutch too, but I might be wrong. That might kill the cruise control. So let's shift up. And let's use the clutch to shift down. Nope, still going. Okay, speeding up along with the flow of traffic. And this is, I actually touched on this in the comfort section of this owner's review. This is great when you're doing this kind of driving. The driving where the speed limit changes, where it's going up and down, and you're in traffic with other people, you can just set the cruise control. Let them deal with changing speeds. The bike will change with them. It really is nice because it's one less thing to worry about. One more thing that you don't have to trouble yourself with. My favorite thing about cruise control is resting this hand. Helps keep my back nice and loose, helps keep my shoulders nice and loose, greatly adds to the long distance abilities of this bike, especially from a comfort standpoint. One thing I have noticed about the radar on this bike is sometimes when you pull behind another car that's going a little faster than you, say someone passes you, like this guy, and you pull in behind that guy, the radar realizes there's someone in front of you and it slows you down a little bit. Now, that might seem like the smart thing to do, but I've noticed my car doesn't do that. If I get in behind another car in my car, the radar in the car won't slow me down if that car in front of me is going faster than I am. It'll keep me at the same speed. It realizes that car is pulling away from me, and it won't slow me down just to maintain the gap that's been set, because it realizes that that car is going to do it on its own. For instance, there, see, it's slowing me down. Oh, that actually, the collision avoidance kicked in there. So that was not a good example. But it is still slowing me down because he is still within the gap that I have set. And now I've been over here for a while with it with it keeping me a little bit slower than I'd want to go in the fast lane. That's a very minor nitpick, but it is something that I have noticed. And speaking of the gaps, that's another thing that I've noticed. I have it set on maximum gap right now. 1/1000, 2/1000, 3/1000, and it's a 3-second gap. I've noticed consistently that gap is at 3 seconds. No matter what speed you're going, it's good at setting it for the speed that you're going. I would really like to be able to set it at least 4 seconds. So in the end, there are two things that I don't absolutely love about the radar. The fact that it'll slow you down when you pull in behind a faster moving vehicle, and the fact that it doesn't let you set enough of a gap. Outside of that, I think it's great. Oh, and one other thing about the gaps, you can tighten that up. Let's decrease the gap. Okay, now if I'm actually going faster than this car, this'll close me in. I think that's about it for the radar in terms of going forward and back. I'll talk a little bit more about it in the mirror section. But for now, I'm gonna give the radar a 9 out of 10. I think it's really, really solid. It has those two little flaws. They're not really that big in the greater scheme of things as far as flaws go. So I think knocking off 1 point is fair, which brings our running total to 55 out of a possible 60. Moving on to the mirrors. These mirrors are really good. I like them a lot, and the longer I have this bike, the more I like them. I do have to adjust them every now and then. I should probably adjust them right now. This one feels a little wonky. I really like these mirrors. These mirrors are really good. The ones on my Kawasaki were good, but I feel like these are better. On my Kawasaki, I would see my shoulder to about here, no matter how I adjusted it. On this, I see my shoulders to about here. That gives me a lot more mirror to look in. They're smooth at any speed. You know, if I'm doing 110, 120, 130, I look in them and it's like looking at a picture. I can see everything crystal clear. I don't know how much more you can actually say about mirrors. I think that's all that I would ever ask out of them. Except for one thing. These have the blind spot monitors built into them. Now, as I've said many times before, I think the way Ducati implemented it makes a little bit more sense. Having a discrete light that's not integrated into the mirror, it makes it a little bit easier to see. This light is a little bit dim in bright daylight. I can see it on this too, but I have to look for it, whereas on the Multistrada, I just see it out of the corner of my eye. But one thing I will give this, and I don't know if you can see it, you probably can't see it from the angle that I'm at, but just as that guy disappeared from view in my mirror, the light came on. Like, it comes on perfectly, exactly as the vehicle that's passing me on the right disappears from view. And then it turns off just as it's about here. And that's great. I don't ever want it to false trigger, you know, and tell me something's there when it's not. I don't want it turning on when I can clearly see the vehicle in my mirror either. I want it to be there just when I need it and at no other time. And that's kind of a lot to ask for. But this lives up to it. This blind spot monitoring lives up to it and lives up to it well. But let's look at how this car goes. I'll tell you when he disappears from view. Right now. Yeah, perfect. That's just perfect. And now it shuts off. yeah, I can't ask for any more than that. That's perfect. That's exactly how I want it to work. So while the way they've implemented it from a hardware standpoint isn't quite as good as the way Ducati did it, from a functional standpoint, it works really, really well. Now, I have heard some people say that when you pass somebody, it does not turn on. Let's see if that's true. Nope, it's not. And you know what? That's actually fine with me. I don't mind that coming on when somebody's there. I don't mind if that comes on just as I pass somebody. Because, you know, one thing I've noticed is that I tend to put people in my blind spot a lot more often than people come up into my blind spot. And I want to know they're there. Because if they speed up just slightly and stay in my blind spot, and I space out just the slightest bit, well, I want the backup of having that light there to tell me, hey, chucklehead, you got someone at 8 o'clock. Don't turn into that lane. As I've alluded to before, I'm never, ever going to solely rely on something like that. I'm very proactive with my own determining of what's around me, and you should be too. You should constantly be checking your mirrors. You should head check until your neck is stiff. But it's nice to have the little bit of extra security there. Like, I'm never going to turn down a safety feature, especially a non-intrusive one like that. What am I going to give the mirrors? Am I going to take a point off for the design for not having the discrete light? I don't think so, because they work so well. Functionally, they're really, really good, both in terms of working just as its base functionality, a mirror, and in terms of how the blind spot monitoring works. I think it all works together so nicely that I have to give it a 10. I know, BMW haters are mad. But that's how it is. They work really well. They work as well, I think, as you could possibly ask of them. So I'm giving them a 10. So that takes us to what? I think we're at 65 now. 65 out of a possible 70. 65? Let's see. Comfort, handling, suspension, 10. Motor, 9. That's 49. I gave it a 7 for the transmission. That's what? 39. Then 46. Then 55 for the cruise control. Yeah, okay. So we're at 65. 65 out of a possible 70. This bike does nothing but impress. Okay, I think now at this point, we're starting to get to a point where you can really kind of see the light patch that the headlights on this bike give you. And maybe it's not optimal conditions yet. There's still a little too much light in the sky. But this really lights up the road well. My last bike, as many of you know, was a 2017 Kawasaki Versys 650L, which I loved. It was a great bike. But the one area where it really was let down a little bit was the headlights. They were not particularly inspiring. They were halogen. They were not very, the bulb in them was not very strong. It was angled down a little too much. And basically you were outrunning that headlight at anything really over 50 or 60 kph. On this bike, you have a much clearer idea of what's up the road. This, first of all, it has a LED light, which is much brighter. And it has a nice sweep. Like, I like the angle that it goes out. I like how far down the road it goes. It gives me a better grasp of what's going on than the Versys did. Versys, excellent bike in so many ways. The headlights, not one of those ways. But yeah, these are really good. This headlight is really good. There's been a lot of, you know, talk about how it looks. It's a weird X-looking thing. It looks like someone stepped on a spider. Honestly, to squeeze the radar into the front of this bike, they had to make the sacrifice of changing the headlight, which is a shame because the previous headlight was absolutely iconic and it looked fantastic. And this one doesn't look as good. Like, that's all there is to it. It just doesn't look quite as cool or mean or distinctive. On the bright side, if you're riding it, you're not looking at it anyway, so who cares? When it comes down to doing the job that a headlight is supposed to do, it does an excellent job. One area where I'm not quite as happy is with the auxiliary lights. That's the auxiliary lights. And they're not bad by any means, but I kind of wonder if they're more designed for somebody who is an off-road rider. If it's supposed to light up the ground immediately in front of you without throwing down the road much at all. If so, they do that very well. But I find that they almost take away, because the extra light being thrown down on the ground right in front of me is so much brighter now, it almost takes away from the light being thrown down the road. And I really would like, if I had a lower pair of lights, like where the auxiliary lights are, that threw light farther down the road. And I think I might eventually switch to the Denalis, the D4s, I think. But to be honest, these lights, the regular headlights, are good enough so that I don't think I need anything better. Turn them back off again. There we go. Yeah, I can see the ground in front of me just fine. So you can really see in this, with the walls of the road here, with the hillside being a natural wall for the road, you can really see the light just gives you, really good light from one side of the roadway to the other. Yeah, I couldn't be happier with that. That was something I was really looking forward to with this bike, is having good, competent, quality headlights. And now I have them. These lights are good enough, so I actually want to ride at night more. Okay, getting into a darker spot here, I'm going to flip up the brights, I'm going to flip up the high beams, and boom, it's like daylight up in here. One final thing I want to look at with these headlights, and I think this is a really good feature. It's a subtle one, but I think it does add to the safety of the bike. But now when we get into this turn, I'm going to turn the high beams off so you can see as much as you need. When we get into this turn, there, right there, a little bit more light just came on. So these are adaptive headlights or smart headlights. I can't remember what BMW calls them, but when you turn, when the IMU realizes you've hit a certain amount of degrees of lean, it flips on another little light. A lot of times when you turn a motorcycle, the beam turns like that too, and you get a very narrow strip of light on where you're going. The same thing happens to an extent with this bike, but it compensates for that by turning on another light that takes up some of the space that has now been vacated by the leaned over headlight. And I think that's a great feature. A lot of bikes have this now. The Multistrada has it. The Versus 1000 has it. Yeah, a lot of bikes. Pretty much any, I think really pretty much any premium bike out there right now has some version of this. And I think that's a good thing. I'm glad that all these bikes have that. I'm glad that if I decide I want to change brands at some point, I'm not going to lose something like that. All right, let's go back into that turn again and get that light to trigger one more time, and then we're going to call it a day. So in that corner, you see it didn't come on. I was barely leaned over at all, and it wasn't necessary. I think these lights do a great job of towing the line of being nice and bright and giving a lot of illumination without becoming a safety hazard for oncoming drivers. Unless, of course, I'm being a jerk and I leave the high beams up, you know, into traffic, which I'm never going to do. Okay, watch for it over on the right-hand side here when I lean into this turn. Right there, it came on. And it just kept the whole roadway lit up for me. That's a great feature. Does your bike have that? Let me know. Okay, so final rating for the headlights. I know some of you are going to be mad at this, but I'm giving it a 10. And I'll tell you why. Because the headlights fulfill the function that they're supposed to as well as possibly can be done. Are the auxiliary lights as good as they can be? No, but they're auxiliary lights, not the main lights that I need to be able to go down the road at night. So I'm not taking off any points for the auxiliary lights. 10 points. And what does that put us at? That puts us at 75 out of a possible 80. Things are looking good. The only thing that can slow this bike down at this point are the electronics. And I think you all know that they're pretty good. Although, I do have a couple of nitpicks. So I think next week's video is worth turning into. Is this it? Yeah. No. Yeah, to summarize. Okay, well, that's it for tonight. Thanks as always for coming along for the ride. Get home safe, and I hope to see you next time. I'm gonna go home and have dinner now. It's spaghetti night.